And let's go way back. Let's rewind back in time and talk about some of the early days of AI and things that we might not consider AI and think about as being actual leading to AI today, machine learning, other aspects. Let's go back to the Newton. Nope, not Isaac Newton. No, not the fig Newton that, some of us, our parents or grandparents tried to make us eat and we would tuck it into our pocket or hide it in a napkin rather than try to choke it down. And let's talk about the Newton. Steve Jobs creating the Newton way back 30 years ago. And back in those days, the handwriting recognition that we see on iPads, that we see on Samsung devices, that we see on Pixel devices, that we see on all these devices now, has existed way back then before a lot of these other companies were even around in the smartphone world or the tablet world or the computer world. We had the handwriting recognition that was on there. We had OCR, optical character recognition, for things like taking photos and the text being brought in. We have object recognition that's been around as early as the early iPod Touch days. We have the voice control, which has existed on Macs, that existed on the iPod way before Google Assistant or Bixby or Siri or any of those things existed. Way back. This technology has existed way back then. Let's talk about Wi-Fi routers. And yes, Wi-Fi routers are related to artificial intelligence, and I'll get to that right now. So the Airport and Airport Extreme were the first publicly available Wi-Fi routers. They used 802.11b. There were ones that used 802.11a, but those were for like big businesses and very expensive and weren't really readily available for everyone. They were kind of a test product. 802.11b, you had multiple channels and certain frequency ranges where the software that was integrated into the hardware would determine what channels were being utilized, and your device would connect to that. And that was using some early days of machine learning, which would be AI. And then we have computational photography, which has basically been around and existed since the first digital cameras. The only way to convert a raw image into something that we can actually see with our eyes, taking those ones and zeros from all the pixels, from the red, greens, and blues that are combined together to get us colors, or to even a black and white image, to have something that we can see that's not just numbers. That has to be interpreted using an algorithm, and each manufacturer has kind of their own specific version. Nikon has their own, Canon has their own, Sony has their own versions of a raw image. This stuff has all been around for many years, and some people think Apple's late to the game, when in reality, they've been there earlier than a lot of the other companies, and you say, well, why hasn't it been so obvious? Well, I think their perspective is to not just shove it down your throat, pause. To not just put it in your face, pause. To actually have it be there without you realizing that it's there, and to appreciate it. Yes, Google has their call monitoring and a lot of the features that are there that Apple is just getting around to integrating stuff. But you can be first, or you can do it well. And quite often you don't do both. And I'm not saying that Apple's doing it any better, but as we've seen that they're just coming out this year and really using the AI terms, Apple Intelligence, yeah, I know, we all know what it is. But so far from what I've seen in the 18.1 beta, they're doing really well. There's even some things that I can do using Siri that Google Assistant can't do. I've been able to make Facebook Messenger messages and WhatsApp and Telegram, just activating SIRI and saying, hey, send a Facebook message to, Taylor, and it'll ask me, well, which Taylor? And I say, Taylor Andrade, and then I can send him a message, or I can send my wife a message on there, and I don't have to necessarily use iMessage. I've tried doing that on my OnePlus 12 using Google Assistant, and it will just kind of give me this, like it doesn't know what to do, or tells me that it can't do that, or just does nothing. There are other features that are integrated that, yeah, ChatGPT and all this stuff is able to do that. Like the summarization within Safari. You put it in reader mode and it can summarize or read it to you in the multitude of SIRI voices, the ability for the writing tools, which I've utilized already. I can be very verbose, as you've seen in this video and as you've seen in other videos. But the ability for me to take text, select it all, and kind of summarize it, or break it down, or get rid of kind of the extra fluff is really handy. I've been able to reply to emails from companies that are hitting me up wanting to review products and be able to kind of take a general statement and make it sound a little bit more professional. Now, it quite often isn't really very much from what I'm saying. I try to be professional. I think my ability to understand the English language is up there enough, and my comprehension and utilization of certain vocabulary is up there enough that it's professional. But also taking and interpreting sometimes the jumbled mess of email that comes in, you can select that text and then hit and copy and paste it and hit writing tools and kind of break down the varying things. I get long emails sometimes when they could just give me 3 main points. You're doing research on a topic, utilizing that. It's great. Writing to SIRI, typing to it, so you can use it for doing search because it will search to the web. Yeah, Spotlight is there and you could do double tap to bring up Spotlight anywhere, but just being able to activate Apple's Assistant and utilize that in all these manners is something that many of these features, like controlling it on device, was a capability that existed years ago with voice control. And then when SIRI came out, they had to do some stuff on the cloud, and now in the more recent last couple of years, they brought it to on-device, and more is done on-device, and you need more memory, and you need faster memory, and more storage, and you need the NPUs and the secure enclaves to do computational photography, and the NPUs to handle image processing and language learning. And I'm not just talking about LLMs, large language models, but I'm talking about actually interpreting our voices and interpreting images. It's kind of like you have a CPU and you have a GPU, and those are parts of the brain, and those are the different segments of the brain. And so maybe the GPU is part of our eyes, but it's also part of the hand that draws images. And the G and the GPU, I should say, is our eyes in that. And the CPU is analyzing numbers and analyzing information and putting that out. But we're still missing hearing and smell and other parts of sight, and being able to recreate that with more than just maybe drawing it, but adding color and adding detail and swapping things out. Well, the neural processing unit is more like the other senses that previously weren't capable of being there when you have just a GPU and a CPU. And that adds benefits. And those neural processing units have existed for the last several years, but that adds to our everyday use. And Apple announces it and talks about it at WWDC, and they talk about it with these events. But I don't think that they make it feel like it's something that's not approachable, or they make it feel like it's something that's difficult to do. Where I kind of felt like at Samsung's event, there's so much. And they're kind of reiterating what's at Google I/O because they use a lot of the same stuff that the Pixel uses. Circle to search, and the summary stuff is ChatGPT and is Google's AI stuff. But as far as really telling a story and how to use it, which is what I try to do in my videos, is I don't only talk tech, I live it. And what that means to me is telling you guys how you can use it through how I use it, and creating a visual story like I did at the beginning of this video and like I'm trying to do throughout this video, making it more user-friendly and not in your face. It exists within the OS, and they can do that because, well, Apple's the only one running iOS or Mac OS or iPad OS, and well, some of us don't like that. And there's downsides to it, even as an Apple fanboy, if you want to call me that, as an Apple user. There's downsides to it. But the plus sides are beneficial to the user because those features, those writing tools, aren't just in email. They're in notes. They're in any app. I can use it in a third-party app. I could have a live stream that I'm participating in the chat, and I write out something, and it's kind of long. It takes up too many characters, and I need to be able to send it in one message. I could select that all and hit the writing tool and just kind of summarize it, or make it more friendly or shrink it down and really take advantage of those tools. And yeah, I know that you can do that within other things, but a lot of times it's like you go to ChatGPT app and you type it out, or you go to a specific app that utilizes it and you type it out and then you copy and paste the results, where this just happens within it. Within email, it does it without having to pop up at the bottom. It just kind of replaces it and then you can revert it back to your original text. It's there, but it's not in your face. I find that to be more user friendly and appealing to probably more users. So whether it's somebody who is already an Apple user and maybe they just aren't going to use the features, so they're just out of the way. But if they want them, they're there and they'll learn to adapt to them and they'll learn to experience them as, tutorials are really prevalent when you get a new version of iOS and you pick up a new phone or you're installing it. The features are explained. When I toggled on the Apple Intelligence toggle, I explained the new features. And then there's a button you can click that brings you to their website that has a more extensive explanation on it. Where I feel like Google and Samsung are kind of like, well, you'll figure it out. They're hoping everybody's watching Google Impact or Samsung I/O or watching the commercials, but I don't feel like it's as approachable and as well tuned in there. And part of that is also Apple continues to market really to the user on the device. And what I mean is they market the features. They don't just give up on, oh, we've already sold you hardware, and they want you to use the software. The only way that software learns is if you use it. The only way that SRI learns is if you provide information to it, which remains on your device and some communicates to the cloud and is integrated with Apple Silicon in the cloud now. And that hardware, those M series chips that exist in clusters on their servers, are communicating and operating in the same way that the A series and M series chip on your iPhone and iPad and Mac are. And so it's not using some other hardware, it's using larger clusters, but it's using similar infrastructure so that they can develop that. And as they shrink it down in the cloud, then they can bring it right to their own hardware. So it's beneficial to the end user. I know I could go on and on and on, but I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts about Apple's not late to the game. They've been here all along, and in many cases, they've been earlier and in the forefront before other companies. Apple has existed in the coalitions for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all these other companies, and Matter. They integrate with Google and Microsoft and so many other companies now to try to create a standard. And yes, they still have their own things, AirDrop and AirPlay, and eventually, I think that we'll see a unified standard. But those APIs are also open. And so we see third-party televisions and speakers using AirPlay and also having Chromecast or Miracast on there or Android Cast or whatever they're going to call it, screen sharing. And so it's just there. You don't have to have an Apple TV. You can have a TCL TV with that integrated, and you can cast directly to it. Now, the advantage of the Apple TV, I'm not getting into that, but that's the ecosystem of things. It's their advantage. And the more you use it, the better it gets. Don't be afraid to use it, but research and learn what it's using. Apple has detailed information on what it's using. You have to grant access to every app. When I ask SIRI, excuse me, to send a Facebook message, every time, if it's a new user or a new recipient, it makes me grant permission again. It's not just one time for the app, it's for each individual chat or thread or group. And eventually, I think we'll see that integrated into X and Telegram and Facebook and other applications where you'll just be able to say, hey, post on X, and they'll say, okay, what do you want to say? And you do it. And even Google Assistant will see doing that. Now, Gemini is out there, but Gemini is missing some of the features that Google Assistant has. And Apple, with Apple Intelligence and the new versions of SRI, sorry, I'm trying not to trigger her for you. I'll just say her for now on, is integrating this together so that if you have the old version of her, you still have those features, but when you have the new version, it's not like you have to pick between SIRI and between her and Apple Intelligence. You get both, and you don't lose out on all the features, and you can still control things on device, and you can tell it to turn your Bluetooth on and off, or you can tell it to restart your device. So those features are still there. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Let me know what your thoughts are down below on AI, on, Google Assistant, Bixby, whatever your choice of virtual assistant is. Let me know what features you've discovered in the iOS 18.1, iPadOS 18.1, macOS 15.1 betas, and let me know what you're looking forward to seeing on your Apple device. Are you updating? Are you sticking with what you're having? Do you even care about these? Just let me know in the chat down below. If you made it to the end, hashtag spicy pepper talk in the chat down below. My name is Michael Pepper of Michael Pepper Tech. I love talking tech. I don't just talk it, I live it, I explore it, and I had this journey along with you. Thanks for being a part of the conversation. Thanks for being a part of the community. It would really help me out if you would hit that subscribe button, smash the like button on your way out. Big thumbs up. Peace, love. See you all in the next video. Thanks for coming along on the ride.